Meet Dave. A crew of miniature aliens operate a spaceship that has a human form. While trying to save their planet, the aliens encounter a new problem as their ship becomes smitten with a Earth woman. In, yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, Meet Dave, starring Eddie Murphy, Elizabeth Banks, Gabrielle Union, Scott Conn, Ed Helms, a very young Kevin Hart, and Mike O'Malley. In this film, written by Rob Greenberg and Bill Corbett and directed by Brian Robbins. This was Vincent's selection from 2008 for this stop on the Micheaux mission. Vincent, what say you of Meet Dave?
We were joking a little bit at the top about people talk this film having a reputation.
Oh,
but I don't know how many people actually watch this film.
okay.
And I certainly include myself in that number before this afternoon. And having watched it, with the amount of bile and venom that is directed towards this film, I found it pretty solid. Like I found it a pretty entertaining hour and a half film.
Okay.
As you mentioned, the plot, if you are a science fiction fan, if you have any experience with genre fiction, is pretty boilerplate. A group of aliens come to Earth for some type of MacGuffin. In this case, the MacGuffin is the salt from our ocean water. But then they are going to meet some humans and realize that humanity has more to offer than what they thought. And they end up changed and, dare I say, improved by the experience. The hook of this version of this film is that the aliens are basically 1 inch tall human beings. And to masquerade as a human and to move through humanity, they pilot a spaceship, which is the form of a human being. And both the spaceship and the captain of this alien crew is played by Eddie Murphy.
Exactly.
And as I said, you can sketch out each of the beats of the plot in this film. I think what really kind of took this film to the level of, okay, this is kind of solid, frankly, is the cast. I think this is a surprisingly strong cast for a film like this. As you mentioned, the very young Kevin Hart is in here for 4 or 5 scenes. And I have to say, I enjoyed the amount of Kevin Hart there was in this film. He's sort of this chaotic element who jumps, there's a very early version of the Kevin Hart character.
Yes, very
where
much.
He's,
very much.
very kinetic, very kind of hyper. He jumps around. And I have to say, because he is so young, I found it a little charming.
Okay.
Because he's young. And it's like this, a guy in his early 20s jumping around doing his thing. I've not really followed her career. So, it wouldn't surprise me if there's a breakout role that she's done where people celebrate her. But everything I see Elizabeth Banks in, she makes better. Like Elizabeth Banks plays the mother of the kid.
Yeah.
That Dave, which is the starship's moniker,
right,
befriends. And she, I thought she had a really easy breezy bit of chemistry with Eddie Murphy. And that's not surprising because I think Elizabeth Banks, when I've seen her, has been in these comedies.
Yes.
Where she really is almost like a utility player who's able to bounce off of these comedians, and certainly comedians who are going a little broad. And she brings this energy. Like I said, there's a nice looseness in her performance.
Okay.
That I thought really worked. This crew The crew, the conceit is that they are aliens and they are being exposed to human emotions.
Yes.
So that the
Emotions
default
are almost
for
like
the
infected.
aliens is that they have this deadpan kind of persona, and because it's a comedy, the deadpanness is played very tongue-in-cheek.
Mm-hmm.
You know, very kind of stone-faced tongue-in-cheek. Ed Helms, like Ed Helms, and frankly, I like Ed Helms at this speed. Like, I love the slow cook Ed Helms, where you can tell at some point he's going to boil over.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Ed Helms in this role. Gabrielle Union, at this point, you can cut and paste everything that I've ever said about Gabrielle Union on this podcast. I really like Gabrielle Union. I wish there was more of Gabrielle Union.
Mm-hmm.
I think Gabrielle Union, once again, has this deadpan, you know, firmly tongue-in-cheek, does not get enough space to really explore it. But, you know, I think this is the role.
Mm-hmm.
This is the role. I think there is this fascinating little, and it's barely a subplot because, you know, frankly, they don't really explore it where Elizabeth Banks' character is romantically drawn to the robot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Gabrielle Union is interested in the captain.
Right. Who is the voice?
Who is the voice of the robot, and the robot is sort of reflecting the captain's movements, so that it's this weird one-sided rivalry that doesn't get quite as bizarre
as it could have.
Yeah,
yeah.
But it's there enough to mention.
Mm-hmm.
And then the center of this, you have Eddie Murphy. And Eddie Murphy plays these two roles. And, you know, I think the one role as the robot,
mm-hmm.
it's this, you know, this really kind of neat physical performance. It is exactly what you would expect from someone who is a master comedian. Like, I don't think there's anything surprising about Eddie Murphy's movements, Eddie Murphy's face. He has the stone face as well.
Mm-hmm.
But this time, because he's controlling a robot, the robot's face doesn't show emotion.
Right.
When no one is watching him. And you know, it's the quirks of him trying to figure out human ritual, and there's this one bit where he goes into Old Navy, and the person at Old Navy says, "Welcome to Old Navy," and they think that this is a human ritual. So for 3-4 minutes, it's him saying, "Welcome to Old Navy" to
everybody, yeah.
with this very artificial smile on his face. But I also liked his performance again as this deadpan captain who isn't emotional, tongue firmly in cheek, and goes on. So that as a film, again, I thought it was solid. I think tonally, you can see it's trying to fit, and certainly when you look at the some of the background of the film, how it switched movie companies and ended up at the company that Columbia,
yeah.
which was responsible for the Dr. Dolittle films.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see how they're trying to fit this into a kid's movie.
Yes.
And you know, I think it fits into the kid movie category. You know, I'm very tepid about Eddie Murphy's kid movie output generally.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, as someone who has watched the kid movies, and again, when you consider the venom that is directed towards this film
by some of the people that are in the film,
who frankly, and at least one of the people has been on record as saying he didn't see the final cut.
Right.
I suspect more than a few of the people involved in this film didn't see the final cut. I think this is better than all of the Dr. Dolittle films. I think this is better than all of the sequels to Shrek. I think this is is okay. It was solid. Like when it was over, I said that wasn't bad, which is not something that you necessarily would put on the DVD.
Mm-hmm.
Vincent Williams of the Micheaux Mission says that wasn't bad. But as a film that, again,
that might be as best as it can get, though.
Right, as as a film that was a punchline and the Razzies and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, one Razzies.
Yeah, I thought it was, I'm gonna say solid.
Well, I will say, I don't know if I'd land on solid like you did, but I will say that there were aspects of this film that I did enjoy that I didn't expect that I would enjoy. Immediate, because I even text you.
Yeah.
I said, I'm 20 minutes into this film, and I've already laughed more than I thought I would.
And that's almost a third of the film.
Well,
it's an hour and a half film.
Well, maybe I was generous with 20 minutes.
Okay. All right.
But because the film starts off, like not far from the beginning, it starts off with the ship, or Eddie, arriving on Earth. And then the ship, Eddie's ship, learning how to walk like a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, I did genuinely laugh, because it is, as one of our emailers pointed out, Eddie Murphy, we know, can do character stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that he can be physically very comedic. He is a very talented physical comedian. But more often than not, when those opportunities have arisen, especially around this time in his career,
Sure.
he's usually clouded or covered with a whole bunch of prosthetics. So you can't really appreciate his physicality. Here it is just Eddie in a white suit, a la Fantasy Island, in this movie. And so you actually can enjoy his physicality. You can see him moving his body and as a robot trying to be stiff, but also learning how to walk. And it actually was drop on the floor funny. I was like, all right, if this is what this movie is going to be, I'm here with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for it. And I think there are some moments of Eddie returning to that level of physicality in the movie, but the first 10 minutes is him learning how to walk, him learning how to what does a smile look like, what does a grimace look like,
Mm-hmm.
learning how to the language, how to pitch his voice. Like those opening bits are hilarious. And then I think the movie returns to that level few and far between
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of the film for me. I think there are levels of it, but it doesn't go there. It doesn't go as hard with it. It doesn't give him as much space, and when it does, it is fairly fairly conventional or stereotypical, such as the Eddie, the spaceship, is on the dance floor.
Sure.
So now he's going to be like the world's greatest dancer.
Right.
You see it coming already.
Yeah.
So that disappointed me in this film. And I too am a huge fan of Elizabeth Banks. I love her in almost everything she does, especially in the Pitch Perfect films, where she basically is like part of the chorus that at the judges for these a cappella groups. She's hilarious. I actually think she's not given enough to do. I think she's basically playing the the typical white woman, fall in love with
kind of love interest
thing. And I don't think it's given enough opportunities to play to her comedic strength.
Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't really feel any chemistry between her and
really?
Eddie Murphy.
I liked them together.
I didn't. I liked Eddie for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
and I like her as an actress, but I didn't feel them. They just didn't connect. But because is so much of the movie,
Sure.
then that part is lost on me.
Mm-hmm.
Then you turn to the other side of Eddie Murphy as the captain on this spaceship. Eddie Murphy, I feel like, Eddie Murphy, for those who don't know, is a historic fan of Star Trek.
Yes.
And
yes.
this movie was basically pitched as like almost like a Star Trek kind of like parody type of, almost in the vein of Galaxy Quest to a degree, but not going as far as Galaxy Quest. So I can imagine that having to be the appeal for Eddie Murphy. Oh, I get to be the captain?
Right.
On a ship, and you see him leaning into that a little bit, especially because he's got like a little affect to his voice that he's putting on.
It's Shatner-esque.
And he's definitely going for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I'm digging it, but I think that runs counter to the tone that's trying to be set in this movie, with it being like a family movie. And I think they want to kind of like, I think the intention, and if you read the background, the intention was maybe to arch this a little bit more to a little bit
initially,
a little not darker, but a little bit more sharper in the wit and the satire, especially in some of the space scenes. And I think that I can see that being the appeal for Eddie. And when they dull the edges of that, then it loses a little bit of its fire. I love Gabrielle Union. I don't think Gabrielle Union is actually that great in this film, because, like you said, when they're on the ship before the crew, it becomes more or less, affected or infected by the American emotions or human emotions. They are deadpan. And all of them are deadpan, I think, except Gabrielle Union. I think Gabrielle Union almost comes across very human, so that her change is harder to see, except that she more explicitly shows that she's attracted to the captain. But I think it's kind of like always there from the beginning, at least from the way that I saw it. Ed Helms, I like Ed Helms. Young Kevin Hart. He's young Kevin Hart, but Kevin Hart is never deadpan. Like, he's always Kevin Hart. So I think there are a couple of forces in this movie that are just playing against itself, and therefore it doesn't wholly connect to make a full sandwich, which is why I don't agree with the level of hate that people have for this movie, including Eddie Murphy, who has said that it may be one of the worst movies that he considers himself to have done.
And he's the one I'm talking about. I would bet
he never saw the final cut.
I would bet $1 American Eddie Murphy has never watched this film.
Probably, but I wouldn't be mad at him, especially because I got a funny feeling that they sold him on it being a little sharper.
No. I hear you, but for him to say this is the worst film that I've ever made, I can name 5 films worse than this that he made off the top of my head.
Okay, fair enough.
And so can you.
Maybe. I haven't seen every one. I land on not liking this film for the most part, but I do think that it gets a bum rap. I do think it's not that bad. You're right. It does. They dull the edges so that it can be a family movie. And I think it does play as a family movie.
Do you like Dr. Dolittle better than this?
I actually have never seen Dr. Dolittle.
Okay.
I think there were 2 of them. I've never seen either one of them. They just didn't appeal to me, and thank God my daughter had aged out.
Did you see Shrek 2?
I didn't have. Yes, I saw Shrek 2.
You think this is worse than Shrek 2?
2 things. First, Eddie Murphy is in that movie, a big part of that movie. I don't consider that an Eddie Murphy movie.
Okay, okay, all right.
But I think this is. I think I seem to remember really kind of liking Shrek 2. It's been a minute, to be fair.
I guess the reason I brought up, I think you're right. Shrek isn't an Eddie Murphy movie,
right,
obviously, but I'm thinking this moment where Eddie Murphy is making kid movies, and as you said, so much of the criticism of this film was about tone.
Yeah.
And frankly, to take it a step further, I think most of the criticism is the worst kind of criticism, where you criticize something because it's not what you wanted
it to be. Fair.
Rather than what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And certainly there's a sharper version of this film. But for what it is, like if somehow, like if Eddie Murphy is going to have this period of his career where I make kid movies, and you know, and we haven't even gotten to 1,000 Words or The Haunted Mansion or you know.
Doesn't he do Holy Man?
Well, I'm talking about kid movies.
Okay.
Like I'm now Eddie Murphy, the kid movie guy. I think when it's time to introduce a kid, I mean, hell, my son, when it is time to introduce my son to Eddie Murphy, and you figure you start with a kid film, I would show him this before Dr. Dolittle, because I thought Dr. Dolittle was just Drek.
Oh, fair enough. I never saw it, so I can't say.
And I think
I remember hearing it was a lot of poop jokes.
I think everything after Shrek has been corporate and soulless. Haunted Mansion Haunted Mansion is what you thought Pirates of the Caribbean was going to be. This sort of corporate synergy kind of film. And again, you know, where you and I apparently meet is that this film has gotten this bum rap. And if I think about it long enough, I feel like this is the type of phenomenon that we talk about every now and then, where these films get. I mean, we talk about a lot now in the culture, where these films get review bombed and you know, as you said, the backstory of this, people were very passionate about it because the writer of the film was one of the creators of Mystery Science Theater 3000, which, you know, has this amazingly fervent, passionate fan base. And I don't think the film was ever judged on its merits. And to be fair, like, I'm not going to say this, you know, no, because again, I don't really like any of these kid movies he makes. But certainly this is no worse than any of those movies.
The only thing I'll push back on you a little bit of what you said is judging a movie. There are people who may be guilty for judging the movie for what it's not what they want it to be, right? And my pushback is that the reason why it doesn't work for me, and I'm wanting something sharper in the comedy, is because I think there are vestiges of what once was there in the script in the film.
I think that's different than what I'm saying.
So what are you saying?
I think your criticism is apt.
Okay.
Like, be clear. I'm not talking about you. Like, I think tonally, the film isn't quite as clear in where
it's not really there,
particularly
forward.
Towards the end, because there's a moment there's a moment of there's a scene of, you know, frankly, violence in the police station that I thought, oh wow, this is a lot. You know, I was talking about thinking about E.T. earlier, because I was thinking about, you know that, and we were talking about like Lost Boys the past couple of weeks, and we showed Adam Willy Wonka over the weekend. But just that,
Yeah, the Gene Wilder.
yeah, we showed him the real Willy Wonka, and then we showed him Tim Burton's Willy Wonka. But you know, there was that wonderful pocket where you had these films for kids, but they did have a bite.
Yeah.
And they stopped making films like that. And this is a film that you wish was like that, and it's not, and then tonally, it doesn't quite coalesce.
Yeah, because you could see
and
that.
I think that is a criticism.
Okay.
What I'm talking about is the historical criticism. Like when you look up this film, and you know, frankly, people were following it, the development of it, and you know, and as I said, as someone who you know who did not adopt the dark, you know, I was born into it. Like I know how this nerd shit works, and I know what was going on in 2008 with these dudes following this, and then you know what happened, and you know, if you read the history of it, people talk about there was all of this negativity towards it before it came out.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Where in a lot of ways, this is an early version of what we talk about now.
Right.
So,
yeah,
you know.
Well, I don't really have anything else more to say about the movie than myself.
Look. I am still going to say, well, I'm going to say what I just said. I think if you are, because now we've moved to, am I going to, would I recommend this film? And I think I'm going to frame my recommendation like I just said. I think if you are interested in this fairly significant part of Eddie Murphy's career, the Eddie Murphy family movie, I think if you include Shrek, the first Shrek, besides the first Shrek, I think this is as good, if not better, than any of the family films that Eddie Murphy has made.
That's a high bar.
I know what I said.
That's a high bar. Not that all of his movies were like
thinking about it all afternoon.
Like fantastic, but that's a high bar there, Vincent. Let's see. Let's go to the filmography of Eddie Murphy and see exactly what we're talking about here as we look at the films of Eddie Murphy.
Right. And like I don't include Mulan in that because he's, you know, basically the funny little side animal.
Well, I
don't think this is better than Mulan.
Okay.
All right.
So,
Daddy Daycare. I think this is better than Daddy Daycare.
Daddy Daycare. So let's look at the films of Eddie Murphy that we think are kids' movies. Yeah. All right. So Dr. Dolittle.
I think it's better than all of the Dr. Dolittles.
All right. So it's better than Dr. Dolittle. Better than
Daddy Daycare.
Better than Daddy Daycare. The Haunted Mansion.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's already 20 years old. Wow. That's really the end of his family movies.
It's like 37 million of them damn Shrek movies.
Well, yes, he did 3 Shrek movies.
Right.
So you think it's better than Shrek 2?
Yes.
I don't know about Shrek 2.
Yes, 100%.
Shrek the Third and Shrek Forever After, I'll give you this may be on as good as those, but I don't know about Shrek 2. Shrek 2 was I remember liking it. I think
Shrek 2, Michael. Why did I just forget his last name?
Michael Myers.
Michael Myers needs to buy a castle.
Here's the question. Is this better than Candy Cane Lane?
Absolutely. I mean, wow, Candy Cane Lane was terrible. Like, why are you wowing that? Wow, you think this is better than a terrible movie? Yeah. Like, I ain't say it was better than Trading Places. Gun to your head. If you had to watch one over again, would you watch this or You People?
Oh, God.
You know what? So my boy used to work for a record label. Used to work for, I think, well, I won't name no names, but he used to work for a record label. And I remember when the Black Eyed Peas came out, their first album where they were spitting.
Yeah.
And I remember being underwhelmed by Black Eyed Peas. And I was like, I mean, it's all right. It was like, and my boy said, because he saw it coming down the pike, how music was changing. He said, there's going to come a day that you will appreciate this album. Because what's going to happen is music is going to change. And what we didn't know is that the Black Eyed Peas would become what the Black Eyed Peas became, which the funniest thing I ever heard about the Black Eyed Peas is that they make hip hop for people who hate hip hop, rock music for people who hate rock, and dance music for people who hate dance music. But he said, there's going to come a time you will appreciate this album. And I think Meet Dave
This hasn't found its time.
Is the Black Eyed Peas' first album.
Really?
Because again, you can watch You People or you can watch this.
Okay. I mean that's a
Let's
long
get it
way
started in here.
Yo, hold up.
Hump my lady lumps. You want to talk about lady lump? Lady.
That's a long way from this is the Black Eyed Peas' first album.
Look.
Come on, Vincent.
Look.
Yeah, you need to pump your brakes on that.
I'm not pumping anything.
Maybe are you high?
No, nor have I been drinking Uncle Nearest.
Ching.
Yeah, I do. I think I think the culture decided that Meet Dave was this great horrible thing, but you know, we peel all that back. We just look at the movie, and I've asked you two direct questions. I'm gonna let you slot. Did you see Daddy Daycare?
I did see Daddy Daycare.
Do you think this is worse than Daddy Daycare? Yeah, I said what I said.
It's not as bad as Daddy Daycare. I did not like Daddy.
Yeah. Again, it was real cool and real hip to shit on Meet Dave. But then he kept making movies.
They kept making movies. That's true.
And now look at you.
Look at you people. All right. Well.
But would you recommend Meet Dave?
No.
Okay. That's fair.
Recommend.
I think that's fair.
I want to, but I can't.
You're right. But if I trapped you on the island and said, okay, Lynn, you got to pick between Meet Dave and 1,000 Words.
Never seen 1,000 Words.
Yeah, you doing a whole lot. Okay, Lynn, you have to pick between Meet Dave and Haunted Mansion.
Here's the thing.
No,
I'll give you what the choice is. And Jesus.
Yeah, because
I think
now you're really thinking about it.
I have to change my vote. I have to say that I would recommend Meet Dave because in my head, I'm saying, would I watch Meet Dave or The Adventures of Pluto Nash? And I don't hate Pluto Nash.
Right.
But I probably couldn't sit through it again.
Pluto Nash is not that good, but it's
not.
also, it's just bizarre.
Yeah. It's another one that just doesn't
kind of bizarre.
Doesn't work.
Right.
And me, I saw what they were going for. It doesn't work. Yeah, I would
recommend this.
Well, I would recommend it over Adventures of Pluto Nash,
right.
which I think I did recommend.
Yeah.
So I with that caveat, I've got to recommend Meet Dave. And to be fair, he is physically funny in a lot of the scenes in Heat.
He shows up.
He shows up.
He shows up for this movie.
Yeah.
And frankly, just to put it out there, I think there are a fair number of his films during this period and after where he doesn't really show up.
He doesn't show up. And I think and he does you can't hang that on him for this one. So I would recommend Meet Dave. There you go.
There you go.
I flipped in real time, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go.